The Crucifixion by an Eyewitness, a letter written 7 years after the crucifixion by a personal friend of Jesus in Jerusalem to an Esseer brother in Alexandria. Supplemental Harmonic Series, Volume 2, 6th edition. Jesus Christ. This picture is the oldest known, found in on a tomb in the catacombs. The Crucifixion by an Eyewitness, a letter written 7 years after the crucifixion by John Emmett Richardson, 1853 to 1935. Published in 1915. 200 pages, including front 19 centimetre cover, I guess. 6th edition, introduction, signed TK, author of the great work John Emmett Richardson. And copyright evidence reported by the uploader for item on December 12, 2007. Visible notice of copyright, stated date is 1907. So anything after 50 years that hasn't been reclaimed and no copyrights put on it is basically free for you to use. And there's some reviews here. We did a couple, but other people first stated in 2023, absolute rubbish, an obvious fake for propaganda, no provenance at all, just hearsay. Another, rubbish. If you're interested in some dirt on Jesus, read Edgar Casey's story of Jesus. The truth will set you free. The Crucifixion, and this guy wanted to know if he could use it and write it in his language, Tamil. Did he need any permission? So we went looking for some information on this particular book, and in answer to the person's question, saying, well, you make a video, you put it on YouTube in your language and see what happens. Okay, then you'll know. I put this other one here quite a while, or a couple of hours ago. The book reviewed and exposed, Benjamin Styles review, The Crucifixion by, there's a certain person online, we could purchase the book. The Crucifixion by an Eyewitness, a letter written 7 years ago after the crucifixion by a personal friend of Jesus in Jerusalem to an Esseer. Probably, by the looks of that word, he might have been in a scene. Not too sure on that one. Brother in Alexandria. Choosing this solely off the title from this reviewer's vast collection of online books, he had no idea that he had selected a heretical, Masonic text for his Holy Easter reading. Once he did find out, he decided to put it aside and read something a bit more wholesome for Good Friday. With Easter finished, however, he had no desire to just leave the book unread, as he didn't like to abandon books he had started, and he would be lying if he said he wasn't curious as to what the writer of this book claimed. Really, it is just a typical attempt to debunk certain elements of the Christian story of Christ's life, ministry and passion. While it does not reject that Christ was a very holy man sent by God, and indeed was an exceptional orator and example of godly compassion for his time, it also claims that he, the writer, or maybe Christ, was a Freemason himself. Yeah, I think he's pointing at Christ, that Christ was a Freemason, was taken in and tutored by the Brotherhood, that he did not perform any supernatural miracles, and that he did not die on the cross, but instead was only badly injured, and died after his continued preaching with the awestruck apostles in tow. All in all, a valiant attempt to take credit for Jesus Christ and flip the Catholic Church a nice big middle finger. But no, the reviewer wasn't going to buy it, and there's the link to it there, where we found this information. So we ad-libbed it, right? We added he, all in capitals, because that's not what he said. We just changed it from I to that. Okay, so let's have a look at this particular book. We may have read it before, we may have done a video on it before, we can't recall. We've done so many. We'll just look through our videos. But again, it's the Crucifixion by an Eyewitness, letter written several years after the crucifixion by a personal friend of Jesus in Jerusalem to an Esseer brother in Alexandria. Supplemental Harmonic Series, Volume 2, 6th edition. Published 1915. Addressed to students and friends of the great school. contents page. Introduction. I'm going to make it bigger so you can see it and read it along with us. Introduction. A brief explanation is due the reader before he proceeds to a perusal of the most interesting letter which follows the preface to this little volume. The English translation of the ancient Latin copy of the letter was made by a German. It is evidence on every page of his translation that he was not sufficiently acquainted with the English language to make a good English translation. This suggestion has reference to the literary form of his work as a translator, and not to the substance of the text. There can be no doubt that he has preserved the meaning of the original manuscript with remarkable fidelity. So this writer is claiming that this person had an original manuscript which he translated. But in many places he has made use of English expressions which are crude and quite out of keeping with our present understanding of cultural literary form. For this reason, the person reviewing it, we're talking about it here, has deemed it advisable to revise his rendition of the text in such manner as somewhat to remove the rough corners of his work. Okay, this is translated by this particular guy, so this author said this is what he's saying. And present to the reader the exact substance of the ancient letter in a little better English form. In no sense has he changed its meaning, and in many places has refrained from substituting his own method of expression, where his rendition is more or less crude and lacking in elegance of diction. His revision of the person's translation, therefore, is not as complete as it might have been made had his method of expression been discarded entirely. The author's purpose has been to place the exact substance of the ancient letter before the reader in such language as to make it entirely intelligible, and at the same time preserve as much of the translator's own form of expression as possible. And this author believed he had succeeded. No changes whatsoever have been made in the closing remarks of the German translator, nor in part 2. His revision, therefore, is confined entirely to the letter of the Esseer, in which he tells his brethren, or his brothers in Alexandria, the true story of the crucifixion, and gives them the facts and incidents connected therewith as he witnessed them. The following additional facts concerning the German translation may be of interest to the reader in this connection. It was published in this country, might have been America, in 1873. For reasons which the intelligent reader will doubtless understand as he proceeds, the book was withdrawn from the publication at once upon its appearance. The plates were destroyed, and it was supposed that all the published copies of the book were likewise disposed of. Fortunately, however, one copy found its way into the possession of a prominent Mason in the state of Massachusetts, or Freemason. There it remained securely until accidentally discovered by his daughter sometime during the early summer of the present year, 1907. This lady, knowing his interest in things Masonic, kindly sent him the copy for examination. He at once recognized its remarkable nature and supreme value and importance. Immediately was started an inquiry through a number of the most prominent bookhouses and publishing concerns to ascertain if other copies of the little book could be found. At the same time, inquiry was made to ascertain if the official copies of the book were still on file in the Congressional Library. To his surprise, not another copy of the book can be found after some 4 months of diligent search. Yeah, we've been looking for a book, King of Kung Fu, by a certain writer, and it's out of publication. We looked in all second-hand shops, etc. Second-hand bookshop, never could find it. We did find several online and several others. It's a really good book about a guy that goes across deserts looking for his adopted brother who killed his Shifu or Grandmaster Lin Fong, and tracking him down to an underground drug cult, etc. Kak Nan Tang. Yeah, it's a really good book. I've forgotten who the author was at the moment, but it's a really good novel. Always had the pictures of Bruce Lee from his different movie scenes on it. The most remarkable phase of the matter seems to be that the official copies which were deposited with the Librarian of Congress, or Library of Congress, a librarian of Congress, in compliance with the law of copyrights, have also disappeared. At any rate, in reply to inquiry, the report came back that no such book was to be found in the Congressional Library. If this be true, it would then appear that the copy from which the following revision was made is, without a doubt, the only copy in existence. To be sure, the Latin manuscript from which the translation into English was made is still in existence, and is in the hands of the Masonic fraternity in Germany, where, no doubt, it will remain securely guarded from anti-Masonic vandalism. The vital nature of the document cannot fail to impress itself upon the intelligent reader and student of religious history, and it is sincerely to be hoped that it will not suffer another eclipse. TK, author of the great works, Chicago, November 1987. They reckon that in the comments that this is signed by him, or in the review. We don't know about that. Anybody can put it, and this was there in pencil. Some little kid might have got a hold of it and decided, oh, I'll copy that, TK. Yeah, how they draw in books and all that sort of stuff. Could have been anyone that put it there. Not necessarily the author. A member of the Abyssinian Mercantile Company discovered in Alexandria an ancient house formerly occupied by Grecian friars, or Greek friars, in whose library, to oblivion abandoned, was found an old parchment. A French literate, accidentally present at once, commenced deciphering it, but a missionary in the ardour of fanatical orthodoxy tried by all means to destroy the antique document, but the efforts of the Jesuit missionary do not seem to have been successful, as a copy of the Latin original was written, which copy through the Freemasons found its way into Germany. It has been proved from the archaeological discoveries made on the spot that the house where the parchment was found was owned and occupied by the order of Essenes. Further, that the document was the only remains of literature from the once well-filled library of this scientific and religious order or brotherhood. The French literate, who first conceived the importance and historical worth of the manuscript, tried hard to enrich the French Academy with the original, but owing to the intrigues of the Jesuit mission in Egypt, bent on destroying a document so detrimental to their doctrine. They would have deemed it heretic because it's not of their belief system or their faith or who they're attached to, as they did when they landed in India and such a time after Thomas had preached the gospel to the Indians. They landed, they saw this thriving church. They said, oh, it's a heretical church. Okay, you're all pagan, you're all heathen, and they killed off like 1,500 of them or something like that. All because they wanted to establish their Roman Catholic Church in that particular place in India. Owing to the intrigues of the Jesuit mission in Egypt bent on destroying a document so detrimental to their doctrine, he was not successful, this Frenchman. Through the interference of influential Abyssinian merchants and Pythagorean societies, from whom the copy above spoken of came into possession of the modern institution of Freemasons, and a society in Germany now possesses without doubt the only copy in existence. As regards the discovered antique document, it consists of a letter in which the so-called Therapeut, the elder, the highest esteemed member of the Brotherhood, had written to his brethren in Alexandria in the name of the Brotherhood in Jerusalem. This letter was written by him only a few years after the death of Jesus, giving a full description of the life, doctrine and death of Jesus, who the letter proves to have belonged to and been a member of their Brotherhood. Rumours of his miracles and finally of his martyrdom had also reached Alexandria, and as the brethren there had a conviction that he was their brother, preached their doctrines, used their sign of recognition, and lived in accordance with their rules, they manifested a desire to be informed on the subject as to the real truth of the matter. To obtain this information, their leader, or Therapeut, had written a letter to his colleague in Jerusalem. who in reply wrote the letter from which we obtain a clear and truthful account of this important and interesting subject. It is a fact which never has been doubted by those familiar with ancient history that the Esseers always spoke and wrote the strictest truth. And this, added to their moral and scientific lives, puts an end to any doubt as to the correctness and genuineness of the information given in the ancient discovered letter. Well, anybody can write a fake and say, oh yeah, we or they testify that this certain brotherhood or whatever, that it's all genuine. And then if they were still around, you get presented to them and they'd say, no, what the hell's that? You know? Although not at first organised among the Jews, this order existed already in the days of the Maccabees, and with them it assumed more of a national outward form, at the same time maintaining most of the ancient Pythagorean doctrines. Most of the members were agriculturists and gardeners, and assembled together to promote virtue and wisdom among themselves. Furthermore, they devoted themselves, especially in the higher degrees, to the art of healing, induced thereto through their studies of nature and art, and were well acquainted with the effects of most then known plants and minerals for recruiting the human system. This knowledge they made useful by healing and comforting the sick. They were true communists. Not like read communist in that sense, probably. It probably means members of a community. And all put their gains into the common treasury. Before sunrise they never spoke to each other earthly matters, but met in prayer at break of day. Having taken their morning meal and put on a peculiar kind of working clothes, they proceeded to their place of work. At noon they again came together, and having washed their hands and feet and dressed themselves in clean white robes, they ate their dinner together. According to their moral standing and ability, they were divided into 4 classes or degrees. In the first degree were the especially adopted children, the Essenes, or Essenes, hardly ever married. But in case an adult wished to be admitted into the order, it was necessary to go through a very severe moral trial for the term of 3 years. It was strictly prohibited for a member of high degree to divulge any of the secrets of his degree to any of lower rank. The punishment for such a trespass was expulsion from the brotherhood. Nothing but a strictly moral life, wisdom, godliness, and excellency in science entitled to the higher degrees. In their domestic life they exercised hospitality and benevolence, kept the rules of the order strictly, and never took any interest or part in politics or revolutions. Thus, they showed a thoroughly peaceable disposition. Their greeting and sign of recognition was, "Peace be with you." At their meals they broke the bread and passed the cup and worshipped Jehovah, but never made any sacrifice in the temple, but performed their ceremonies in their homes. They knew no higher virtue than to suffer and die for their belief. They believed in martyrdom. Accordingly, death did not terrify them, as they believed the spirit, a prisoner in the body, to be released through death, then to return to the celestial glory. Deceit and profanity were considered grave sins, as well as quarrelling and vengeance, and looked upon with abhorrence. They detested it. This order, of which the present Freemasonry is the modern issue, was at the time of Jesus widely diffused through Palestine and Egypt. So it was rampant there, right? It was thriving there, and had their colonies scattered all over the country. They always kept up a congenial fraternal feeling in their meetings, and gave each other information about the affairs of the brotherhood. They counted among their members men of all professions and stations in society, all different levels, right? Positions, and although comprising a great many learned men and rich persons, who sometimes found it in their interest to keep the secret, they never excluded the poor, nor persons in moderate circumstances. Thus, we have all reason to credit this letter, dictated by the love of truth, and written by a man who had been an eyewitness to the most of the important transactions in the life and death of Jesus, who, as a member of their order, was embraced by them with all the fraternal devotion of the order. The translator. Description of Jesus. By his contemporary Publius Lentulus. You'd have to go and do research on this particular person to see if he actually existed, and he was this contemporary of Pontius Pilate, or the predecessor. By his contemporary Publius Lentulus, who was the predecessor of Pontius Pilate as governor of Judea. So was he before him? before he came along. A man of noble stature and of very beautiful countenance, in which such majesty resides that those who look on him are forced to admire him. He's talking about Jesus. His hair is of the colour of a fully ripe chestnut, and from his ear down his shoulders it is of the colour of the earth, but shining. It is parted in the middle of his forehead, after the manner of the Nazarenes. His forehead is smooth and very serene, his face free from wrinkle and spot, and with a slight colour. The nostrils and lips cannot reasonably be found fault with. The beard is thick and like the hair, not very long, and divided in the middle. There is a look of terror in his grave eyes. The eyes are like the rays of the sun, and it is impossible to look him steadily in the face on account of their brilliancy. When he reproves, he terrifies. When he admonishes, he weeps. He makes himself loved and is gravely cheerful. It is said that he was never seen to laugh, but he was seen to weep. His hands and arms are very beautiful. In conversation he is charming, but he seldom engages in it. And when he does converse, he is very modest of countenance. In presence he is the most beautiful man that could be seen or imagined, just like his mother, who is the most beautiful young person that was ever beheld in these parts. In learning, he is an object of wonder to the entire city of Jerusalem. He never studied at all, and yet he knows all sciences. He wears sandals and goes bareheaded. Many laugh at seeing him, but in his presence, and when speaking to him, they fear and tremble. It is said that such a man was never seen or heard in these parts. In truth, as the Hebrews informed this person, who wrote it all down, who was the eyewitness of his crucifixion, tell him there never were heard such advices, such sublime doctrine as this Christ teaches, and many of the Jews held him for divine, and they believe in him, while many others accuse him to this particular person as being contrary to thy majesty. It is acknowledged that he has never done harm to anyone but good. So what they mean by being contrary to the majesty, thy majesty, who is speaking about? They're probably speaking about God, perhaps. It is acknowledged that he has never done harm to anyone but good. All that know him and have had dealings with him say that they have received from him benefits and health. The foregoing description is condensed from a letter, supposedly written by Publius Lentulus, then governor of Judea, to Tiberius Caesar, emperor of the Romans. Death warrant of Jesus. Sentence rendered by Pontius Pilate, acting governor of Lower Galilee, stating that Jesus of Nazareth shall suffer death on the cross. So there was Tacitus, the orator, Roman orator, and historian, who stated he knew of the records of this Pontius Pilate putting on trial this Christus, Jesus the Christ, and then having him executed. In the year 17 of the Emperor Tiberius Caesar, his particular reign, and the 27th day of March, in the city of the holy Jerusalem, Annas and Caiaphas being priests, sacrificators of the people of God, Pontius Pilate, governor of Lower Galilee, sitting in the presidential chair of the praetory, condemns Jesus of Nazareth to die on the cross between two thieves, the great and notorious evidence of the people, saying, they were telling him, 1, that Jesus was a seducer, 2, that he was seditious, 3, he is the enemy of the law, probably of the Mosaic law, or the Torah. 4, he calls himself falsely the Son of God. 5, he calls himself falsely King of Israel. 6, he entered into the temple followed by a multitude bearing palm branches in their hands. Orders the first centurion, Cornelius, to lead him to the place of execution. Forbids any person whomsoever, either poor or rich, to oppose the death of Jesus Christ. The witnesses who signed the condemnation of Jesus are 1, Daniel Rabbani, a Pharisee, 2, Johannes Rabbani, 3, Raphael Rabbani. So those three there were obviously brothers of the same family. 4, Carpet, a citizen. Jesus shall go out of the city of Jerusalem by the gate of Steuenus. The foregoing is engraved on a copper plate on the reverse side of which is written. A similar plate is sent to each tribe. It was found in an antique marble vase while excavating in the ancient city of Aquila in the Kingdom of Naples, it'll be in Italy, in the year 1810, and was discovered by the Commissioners of Arts of the French Army. At the expedition of Naples, it was enclosed in a box of ebony and preserved in the sacristy of the Chaud. The French translation was made by the Commission of Arts, and supposedly the original is in the Hebrew language. So you have to go do your research, try and find it, see if it was real, prove that it was the actual declaration of condemnation, etc. And was it in the original Hebrew language? That would be either the Galilean Aramaic, the Aramaic Hebrew, or something relatively ancient of those days. It wouldn't be in the modern vernacular, and then somebody translated into that Syriac or modern Hebrew or Greek.